South Korea's stock market is up sharply. Taiwan is hitting record highs. Meanwhile, India's market has gone nowhere. So, as an investor, it's natural to wonder whether you're invested in the right place. After all, when other markets are delivering eye catching returns, staying invested in India can start to feel like you're missing out. So, are you sitting in the wrong market? Should you move money from India into these fast rising Asian markets? Or are these spectacular returns hiding risks that many investors aren't seeing? In this video, we'll answer three questions. First, what's driving these rallies in South Korea and Taiwan? Second, what risks are investors ignoring? And third, if you want global exposure, where should you invest? Let's talk about why South Korea and Taiwan are suddenly flying. Well, the global AI boom has created two of the biggest winners in Asia, South Korea and Taiwan. As demand for AI chips, data centers, and advanced semiconductors surged, investors poured billions of dollars into these markets. Home to some of the world's most important technology and semiconductor companies, both countries became direct beneficiaries of the AI investment wave. The result has been a remarkable stock market rally. Over the past year, the South Korean market has delivered the returns of 262.7%, while Taiwanese market has gained 118.9%, significantly outperforming most major global markets. At first glance, that sounds like a great sign. But when you look under the hood, a surprising risk emerges. Which brings us to the next segment, the risks that nobody is talking about. Risk number one. These markets are becoming dangerously dependent on just a handful of companies, aka concentration risk. Take South Korea. The market's spectacular rally has largely been driven by two semiconductor giants, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. Together, these two companies now account for nearly half of the entire benchmark index. Think about that for a moment. As an investor, you may believe they're getting exposure to hundreds of Korean companies. And while many of these businesses are high quality, globally competitive companies with strong earnings growth, a large share of market returns is still driven by just a handful of companies. So that's a concentration risk that investors should be aware of. Hence, while the profits and growth are real, the market's impressive returns aren't as broadly distributed as they may initially appear. And that's a problem. Because if the semiconductor cycle slows down or if chip prices fall, the impact could be felt across the entire market. Taiwan faces a similar challenge. One company, TSMC, has become so dominant that it now represents approximately 55% of Taiwan's benchmark index. In other words, when many investors think they're diversifying into Taiwan, they're often making a very large bet on a single company. And the influence of TSMC doesn't stop there. Because of its enormous size, it has also become one of the largest positions in emerging market indices used by investors around the world. This is exactly what concentration risk looks like. The market appears diversified on the surface, but underneath, a small number of stocks are doing most of the heavy lifting. This doesn't mean that the rally is unsustainable. It simply means that investors should be aware that a significant portion of returns is being driven by a small number of companies. Risk number two, it indicates speculative rally. Whenever a market rallies this strongly, this question might come to your mind. Have the biggest gains already been made, or am I too late to this rally? Many foreign investors who entered these markets earlier are now sitting on substantial profits. In fact, some of them have already started trimming their positions and booking gains. South Korea's FPI equity outflows hit $69 billion in 2026 till date, including $31.8 billion in May alone, while Taiwan saw 8.5 billion of foreign outflows in the week that ended 12 June and roughly $8 billion in June so far. As money flows out of these markets, it can create periods of selling pressure, tighter liquidity, and heightened volatility. That doesn't mean the rally is over. Rather, it means new investors are entering at a very different point than those who entered a few years ago. So, before chasing recent performance, it's worth asking a simple question. Are you investing because the long-term opportunity is attractive or because the recent numbers look impressive? Now, risk number three, which many investors misunderstand, is limited currency hedge. Most investors view global investing as a way to reduce dependence on India. But there's another advantage that's just as important, protection from currency shocks. When the US dollar rises sharply, money often flows out of emerging markets and back into dollar-denominated assets. That can weaken local currencies, tighten financial conditions, and put pressure on stock markets. The data tells an interesting story here. Across multiple periods of dollar strength, markets like China, Taiwan, and South Korea saw steep declines. The US, meanwhile, was generally far more resilient. That's because in times of uncertainty, money often flows into US assets and the dollar. For Indian investors, this creates a valuable source of diversification. A US allocation doesn't just provide exposure to global businesses, it also gives investors exposure to a different currency, reducing reliance on the rupee alone. So, if investors are chasing South Korea and Taiwan just because of the recent rally, they are also taking concentration risk, foreign flow risk, and receiving limited currency diversification in return. Which brings us to the next segment. Where do Korea and Taiwan fit in a portfolio? See, the goal was never India versus global. The goal is India plus global. Think about it. India gives you exposure to one of the world's fastest growing major economies. Global markets, especially the US, give you access to some of the world's most innovative and profitable companies. And while some East Asian markets are heavily influenced by a handful of semiconductor giants, both India and the US offer broader sources of growth. That's why the US doesn't compete with India in a portfolio, it complements it. Even Nvidia, the biggest beneficiary of the AI boom, accounts for less than 8% of the index. The rest is spread across global leaders like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet. So rather than relying on a single company or single theme, you could be part of multiple engines of growth. India offers a very similar advantage. The Nifty 50 is not dominated by one stock or one sector. Instead, it represents a broad mix of financial services, technology, consumer businesses, energy companies, and automobiles. In other words, both markets are diversified enough to reduce single company risk while still giving investors exposure to long term growth. And that's why the real question isn't, should I invest in India or the US? The better question is, how much of each should I own? Which brings us to the very important aspect, the asset allocation. For most investors, India should remain the core of the portfolio. It offers exposure to one of the world's fastest growing major economies, supported by rising consumption, improving infrastructure, and long term earnings growth. That's what makes India difficult to replace. But that doesn't mean you should ignore international markets. A good framework can be 60 to 70% India, 10 to 15% US, and 10 to 15% gold. And if you're tempted by South Korea or Taiwan, treat it as an experimental allocation. A small 5% allocation from your satellite portfolio is more than enough. Do note, this allocation is completely based on the risk appetite and investment horizon of an investor. Here, the idea is simple. Let India drive long-term growth, use the US for global diversification and dollar exposure, rely on gold for stability, and use satellite allocations to capture selective opportunities without taking excessive risk. So, how much international exposure do you currently have in your portfolio? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Power Up Money for more insights on mutual funds and investing.